Welcome to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski. You know, this is our 15th season here on this cable network here at the Peters Township High School, and I'm going to tell you I'm appreciative to be welcomed back, and hopefully we'll have a good season with a lot of information about the health for yourself and your family and your animals as well. Today we have Dr. Gary Fieber. Dr. Fieber, welcome back.
Pleasure to be back, sir.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You're such a knowledgeable person on how the body works. Now, you're a chiropractor by profession.
Correct.
You're not in active practice right now as far as seeing patients.
Correct.
But give us a little bit about your background and what led you to become a chiropractor, if you would.
It actually started when I was 8, and I was having interesting, let's call it lower abdominal quadrant pain. And even though the family doctor at that time, they were awesome. They'd come to your house, they did surgery, they did everything. Anyway, I was cutting my aunt's grass one Saturday morning, and this pain hit, and it would hit like right now. And it was terrible. I mean, it would double me over. And it would last 2-3 hours, and it would go away. And nobody could figure it out. So at about noon, I was finishing the grass, walking up to the house, and it hit, and I'm laying on the back of the steps. I'm screaming because it hurts, you know. Call me a wuss, call me whatever you want, but it hurt. And the chiropractic clinic next door, one of the doctors was leaving because they worked till noon on Saturday. And he comes over, he didn't know what happened, he thought I got hit by something. And he's looking at me and he's checking things out. And he asked my grandmother and my aunt if he could take me over to the clinic and look at me. And he picked me up and he carried me over there. I wasn't gonna walk. Anyway, did a few things, checked some things out, did an adjustment, which is always a questionable thing for the public when they don't know what adjustment means. But in 15 minutes, my pain was gone. And that blew me away. And that started my career as a chiropractic patient. And it was interesting because there were two brothers. The one brother was more of I'm a chiropractor, but I'm an acupuncturist, nutritionist. The other one was what we call more straight line, just chiropractic. I would see them both. But it was amazing because I started to see them and my family started to see them. And it just went on until I decided I'm going to do this as a profession.
That's kind of interesting because I think when I was 8 years old, I just wanted to be a fireman. But at that particular point in time, chiropractic was kind of a secondary medicine thought of. It was kind of like witch doctoring. Oh,
I was actually called a witch doctor once in practice. It's a misunderstood profession by a lot of people, and I'll give that blame, if you will, to the profession or the leaders in the profession. But it really, basically, chiropractic deals with allowing the body to naturally heal itself if it hasn't deteriorated to the point where you need other interventions.
So why is the body able to do that?
The body's programmed to heal itself. I mean, just like when you cut yourself. If you cut yourself, it's not the Band-Aid that actually heals you. It keeps the blood off the clothes, but the body will heal it. The nervous system, the energy flow through the body, is obviously what controls everything. Think of the hard drive on your computer. If your hard drive's not working, you can't open files. It's slow. As the nervous system runs down or gets compromised, it's going to affect everything that goes on in your body, from cellular reproduction to muscle function to everything in between. I mean, thyroid, all the organs, everything is controlled by the nervous system. We look at the nervous system in a way to try to normalize that. And because the brain is encased in solid bone, your skull, and the spinal cord runs from the brain through the vertebra and the spinal column to protect it, and that column moves every which way, literally. And every nerve in the body, every nerve comes off that cord and goes everywhere. In fact, whoever did the research on it blew me away, but if you take all the nerves out of the body and lay them in the end, it will literally go around the circumference of the earth. So you wonder why you get stressed? There's a lot of nerve tissue there. So, and there's things that affect it. You can eat the wrong food and short circuit the nervous system, but we try to deal with those things.
And I always look at the body as basically being a tube. Not unlike a hose, a watering hose, a gardening hose. And if you kink that hose, the flow stops, the water stops.
Right.
And if we look at our bodies the same way, if we become kinked, that energy that you mentioned, and that's actually what I'm hoping to focus on today on the show, is talking about the energy of the body and how to support that energy and what influences it and misdirects it and so forth. But we have to think of ourselves as a tube, and we want to keep it unkinked. And I think that's why chiropractic care, as both useful as an injury situation, but actually as a maintenance program in order to keep that body flexible and taut and flowing.
Absolutely, and it really doesn't make any difference what your activity levels are, because when I was in practice, the youngest patient I ever had was 2 hours old. I saw in the delivery room. You know, I saw a lot of the Minnesota Vikings. No, they never won a Super Bowl, but hey. You know, you see people 104 years old and everything in between, and you look for interruptions in this flow. And again, sometimes the sad part about chiropractic is it'll work so quickly, it's like right now. But it takes a while, depending on how run down the body is, to actually regenerate itself, if you will, or heal the tissues. And that's why sometimes it's difficult. But we use, you know, not only adjustment, I mean, I'm an acupuncturist, I've done clinical nutrition, I've done all of that stuff because it's an adjunct. Everything is affected by everything else.
Well, I think chiropractic care and the clinicians were ahead of the game on nutrition, on supplementation. All the other people in the medical profession stayed away from that, didn't believe in it. That's starting to change now, slowly. You know, I laugh when I hear people, physicians talk, and they'll say, "Oh, those supplements don't work." Well, you know, they're going by their in-the-box training, and nobody focuses on nutrition when they're in school. I mean, I had a week of it, and I know some physicians have had a few hours of it.
Right.
And we're really not taught that. But at the same breath, they'll come out and say, well, you're taking this medication, well, you can't take that supplement. If the supplement's not effective, then it doesn't matter whether you're taking the supplement with the medication, but they are effective. And I think some physicians are starting to see that. They're starting to become more aware, maybe because of TV shows like this or radio shows like Healthy People, which you're going to be on this Saturday, by the way.
There you go. It is true. It's interesting. People they look at nutrition in a strange way. They look at supplements in a strange way. In an ideal world, you shouldn't need to take supplements. However, the food's wasted, the environment's toxic, and it overwhelms the body. And these supplements that we should take, some of them much more important than others, literally act as a catalyst or an enzyme or a triggering mechanism for these reactions to occur.
Exactly. They don't do anything directly to the body. They cause the body to synergistically work to do what it's supposed to do.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
And getting back to this tube thing, I think it's so important for people to really realize that, because I think that's the chiropractic care has changed so dramatically. I remember my dad going, and I would just go with him, and I'd hear him yelling in the while I'm out in the waiting room, and I'm going like, I'm never going to go there, you know. But chiropractic care today isn't that so much that jerking, and you know, I have pictures of clinicians sitting on the back of somebody and jerking their bodies. It's not that way anymore.
Not a lot of time. People still do manual adjustments where and what scares people is the noise, and the noise is really just what we call a cavitation. All the joints in the body, in the spine, are flat joints, and they slide back and forth. When I bend forward, my neck has to open up. When I bend backward, it has to close. Well, if those joints get stuck, locked, trapped, caught, fixated, the thing that drives me crazy, though, about the chiropractic world is to say, that joint's out of place. No, it isn't. If it was out of place, it would be dislocated. Now my friends in neurosurgery need to take over and fix that. But they get locked. I mean, if you jam a finger, anybody playing basketball, volleyball, anything, they jam a finger, the finger doesn't move. What happens immediately? You get pain, you get swelling, you get lack of motion. Now you can leave that finger stuck like that, and of course you want to make sure it's not broken, but the minute you unlock that joint, the swelling goes down, the motion comes back, the muscles start to work. Now imagine that in the spine, and all of the nerve tissue affected by that, and everything as an end result that happens to lead to it, not only the local pain. So that snapping or cracking is really just nitrogen being released when the joint moves quickly versus slowly. But a lot of it nowadays is done with technology, computers, computer-assisted machines, very, very specific.
What people have to realize is where there is a nerve, there's our blood vessels.
Oh, absolutely.
And they all work together to deliver oxygen, to deliver nutrients and so forth. And that pathway has to be kept open.
Correct.
And now, for example, and I'm going to cite myself, I'm sitting here, and I don't know if the audience can see this or not, but I'm sitting here holding Tucker, who's asleep here, with my leg crossed, and I'm already feeling the back of my joint and my knee, I'm feeling my foot go numb a little bit.
Right.
So this is probably the worst position that I should be sitting in. So what happens if I continue to do this?
Well, pretty soon you won't feel anything, but what's going to happen on a cellular level, and people don't understand that there's so many hundreds of trillions of cells in the body. The cells move energy back and forth or they create energy by having circulation and fluid around them, and sodium, chloride, everything else goes through that. That causes a reaction, much like a battery in your car or in your phone or anything else. But when you shut down the circulation, what does that do? It backs up fluid. The nervous system has to react to it. And see, here's the thing people don't get. The nervous system is designed that you have to have about a 60% loss of neurological function, if you will, or information before symptoms occur.
Such as the tingling that's in my foot
That's
right
why
now.
it didn't come immediately. Now, if I put a rubber band around your thigh and tighten it, you're going to feel it right away. Obviously, that's an intense warning system, but what people don't understand, and why we have a healthcare system that is as sick as it is because people operate on the fact, well, I don't have any symptoms, or it's only a mild headache, or I only get those headaches 3 times a week.
And then it suppresses those symptoms.
Exactly right. Take some Advil, take some Tylenol, take some this, take some OxyContin, take some heroin, do whatever you want, but it doesn't fix anything but cause more of a dependency on that while the body continues to deteriorate.
So you got to remove that, what I call insult.
Right.
Which is, you know, you could be doing this with your finger, and that's creating an insult. If you did that long enough, that tissue would end up becoming malignant, actually, becoming a cancer, form of cancer from the trauma. So you have to stop doing this stuff. You know, I often say if you're hitting your head with a hammer and then taking an aspirin to get rid of the pain and still hitting your head with a hammer, there's something wrong. And that's kind of what we do.
It's exactly what we do. And the sad part about what you just said is, if you continue to do this, before pain really sets in, your brain will shut down that sensory input because it can't handle it. But the minute it's not stopped, now it comes back with a vengeance, and you go, what the heck? Yeah, well, it's bruised and now it's swollen. So the body has a built-in, call it a defense system, but you keep overriding that defense system, and it's like putting crappy gas in your car. It's the same thing. Eventually, it's not going to run right.
And that's what we do with food. The food isn't made the way it used to be, the way our grandparents even ate. And their nutrition's not in there. A lot of chemicals in there, creating a synthetic thing that our bodies can't handle, first of all. And then now they're doing GMO foods, and they're saying, well, there's not a problem with them. They haven't even been out long enough to study them.
Right. Although the chemicals that they spray on the food, you know, sometimes you wonder, is it GMO, genetically modified foods, which I believe is a problem, but the glycosulfates, sulfates, and all of the toxins they put on there. And by the way, buy organic food. Here's an interesting statement. Organic food means the soil is not contaminated with chemicals, right? But where does the water come from? How about the air? See,
it's still the better choice,
but you got to be careful.
Yeah, but it's still a better choice
by far.
You know, because they often spray the fruit. They pick it when it's not ripe,
right?
In order so it doesn't spoil in transportation, because it's coming from other countries, or even across the state, and then they spray it with these glyphosates or
toxic chemicals.
Toxic chemicals. You know, Monsanto was big with this stuff.
Roundup and everything.
Roundup, and that actually causes them to ripen during transportation without spoiling. And so you're eating an apple or a tomato or something that's loaded with this pesticide on it.
They did a study in Florida not a number of years ago. They have to pick fruit before it's ripe, or it'll rot, like you said, in transit. The problem is, a lot of this fruit, like most of the oranges that were studied prior to shipment, had minimal to no vitamin C, because when it's ripe, the vitamin C shows up. And it's the same thing with the bioflavonoids in the peel, that white stuff nobody likes to eat. Citrus bioflavonoids are very, very good for the body, but nobody likes to eat that stuff. So it's really a sad state. You're right about medicine with a capital M. A lot more people in that are understanding it. Studies have been done that show that cardiologists, a high number of them now take antioxidants, which is interesting. Why? Because they know there's enough studies to prove it. But they either don't tell their patients, or the public doesn't get it, or, unfortunately, they'll go buy the junk that's out there.
Well, in actuality, a medical practitioner that's outside the box for their training.
Most of the time.
And they can't tell you to take a vitamin C or something like that technically. You
Right.
know, if there was a medication that, you know, vitamin D3 is an example. You never heard about vitamin D3, which is so important for the body. All of a sudden there was a drug now where they could patent it, produce it, that you take once a week in this extremely high dose, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. Then all of a sudden, now we're testing D3. Every time you went in the physician's office, let's see what your D3 is. And then they write a script for it because now that's what we're trained to do.
Right.
But you know, that's not how you should take vitamin D3 all at one time. If you had to eat 5,000 calories a week, you wouldn't eat 5,000 on Monday and starve yourself for the rest of the week.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of the same thing with vitamin D3. You need it every day. So it's interesting how, you know, the pharmaceutical companies influence the medical profession and how we as consumers buy into it.
Well, we're programmed. We're literally raised that way. And hey, they do some great things. Look, if I had some major infection in my brain, yeah, you pump me full of all antibiotics you want because I want to live.
Right.
However, why did I get sick in the first place? And that's the step where I've taken for 40 plus years.
And chiropractors in general look at the root cause. They look
Right.
at that kink in the of the nerves and the blood vessels, that misalignment. What do you call that?
Subluxation. And that subluxation word has created problems in the medical community in chiropractic because to a medical doctor, especially an orthopedic surgeon, a subluxation is a dislocation. And of course, they've been fighting about that for years. Although the nice thing about it is I had very good relationships with the medical community when I was in practice. And you see a lot, not a lot, but you see more and more now medical doctors working with chiropractors, working with naturopaths, working with other providers because they do see that, oh, gee whiz, the benefit is to you, the patient. So if we can make this thing work as a team, what a concept. I mean, you know, it's like, and same thing with dentistry. I mean, you know yourself, obviously being in the dental profession, the more natural dentistry now that goes on and the way people look at problems in dentistry, just with, I mean, the number of problems with the jaw, the number of problems with the teeth that can affect all the other parts of the body are amazing.
And it does.
Oh, it's unreal.
You know, infections in the gum, infections in the tooth can affect your brain, affect your heart, all your organs. It's just amazing. And there was a big disconnect from all of that. But again, you know, our knee bone is connected to our hip bone.
That's right.
And, you know, that old song, we have to look at the body in a holistic way.
Look at the whole picture of the person. And that's the thing. And sadly, today, and the kids, unfortunately, don't really get the education. Oh, you shouldn't eat that. It's got sugar in it. You shouldn't eat that. Well, nobody tells them why. Nobody tells them what sugar does.
What does sugar do?
Well, one of the things it does, it binds the same receptor sites in the brain as cocaine.
So what does that mean?
So you get that sugar high. You need energy. Boom, you get the sugar high. Then watch it. You crash in an hour to an hour and a half. You can't keep. And then not only that, but it affects the insulin. It affects all the other organs in the body. Oh my God, yeah. And so it's just like soda pop, Coke, whatever. That stuff's unbelievable. And I know I shouldn't mention names, but any kind of soda, any kind of energy drinks, you know, those things are great momentarily, but not long term.
Even these hydrating drinks that you buy are just loaded with sugar.
Right. Sugars, corn syrups, all of that stuff for immediate energy.
And they do create that immediate energy, but then there's a rebound effect with that.
Yep. The downside is you feel like, and if you feel like, if you have lunch, and if you're tired within an hour to an hour and a half, your blood sugar system's not working, your carbohydrate metabolism's messed up, your protein metabolism, because you shouldn't eat lunch and feel tired within an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That's the adrenals, it's everything else.
So what is this cellular energy that we brought up?
Cellular energy is what makes up everything that goes on in the body. We are an electrical being. We are an energized being, okay? Nothing works without energy being created in the body.
How do we know that?
Well, they've actually measured it, which is kind of cool. They've actually done studies now. They've done them actually since the 20s, the 1920s. They know that every organ in the body emanates a specific frequency of electrical energy. And by the way, if you don't believe that, why would you get electric shock or static electric shock when you walk across a carpet?
Why would you go to a physician's office and have an EKG or an ECG or an EEG?
And
because we're measuring electrical potential.
We are, and here's the interesting thing. ECGs now, where they do the ones with the brains, what we're talking about, they can now do that without wires attached to the head. They literally put you in something like an MRI facility with this cone comes over you, and they can measure the electrical activity in the brain without a wire connected to you. It's kind of like Wi-Fi.
Kind of like Wi-Fi. Well, even a watch today.
All right.
I can sit here and take my pulse. I can sit here and do an ECG on here, and you sit there and go like, wow.
I know.
You know, it's almost science fiction to be able to sit here and do something like that. But we are electrical beings, and if our electrical energy isn't where it should be, then we're not functioning, and hence basically the root cause of most diseases,
if not all of them. And the other issue people don't understand is the thought processes that we have. Whether we feel depressed, whether we feel angry, whether we feel whatever emotion we feel. They've actually done enough research on this to prove this. When you're unhappy, when you're stressed out, your immune system function goes down. So your white blood cell production goes down. Your whole ability to fight infection goes down, which is why even today the scientific community says that the majority of illnesses, 90% or more, are directly related to or somehow created by long-term stress.
Well, chronic stress is a big problem because what ends up happening is your adrenal glands, your thyroid, which are connected and related, your intestinal tract, all of these communicate, and they produce hormones.
Right.
Even your intestinal tract does. And you end up getting an imbalance. And what are hormones? Nothing more than messages. They're messengers. They send messages to the organs, to our systems. When that goes off, the message is not what it should be, and then our organs don't know how to function properly.
Right.
Or we get sick.
They go into a fight or flight mechanism. They go into a reactive anytime you're in a reaction to something all the time. I mean, think about this. Think about the last time you had a situation where something was making you stressed out. I can go back to a chemistry final in college. I mean, I'm
still taking that test.
Yeah. The thing is, anybody that's worried about something, if you focus on how did you feel when you were worried about it, your neck got stiff, you got queasy, you got tense. Okay, that's because you had a thought like, oh crap, this test might be hard. I may not pass this test, or I'm taking the SAT or something else, or I'm dealing with a job thing that I can't deal with anymore, but I don't know what to do or say. Those stressors, as I call them, affect us so much. And, again, take something to help with the effects of the stress, but go back to what's causing it. Relationship stress today is amazing. I mean, we can go on and on, but that affects us physically. And then we end up with all these illnesses. We are the sickest country in the world of the advanced cultures that we have. When you think about that.
In addition, we're the most medicated.
We're the most medicated, and we spend more money per capita. They call it health care. I call it sick care. Per capita, it's almost $10,000 a person right now. In Cuba, the population's healthier than we are, according to the World Health Organization. Most third world countries, they don't have everything, but they don't have all the illnesses we have either. I mean, it's really sad.
So this electrical potential basically is available because we keep ourselves in a slightly alkaline state.
Correct.
And alkaline meaning oxygenated.
Right. So
what upsets that balance for us?
Well, the biggest thing that upsets it's fluid imbalance, which is water consumption.
So we're always in a state of dehydration.
Dehydration, and now where to get the water? Because really, the water we should drink should have a higher pH.
Higher pH and electrolytes.
More alkaline. Electrolytes, what are they? What trigger these mechanisms to have energy transfer in the body.
So when we go to our faucet and we get a glass of water, that's neutral. That's about 7 pH on average.
Right.
And so you're going to a acidic state to an alkaline state. Acidic, closer it gets to 0, like a can of Coca-Cola's, like battery acid at 6.5, or you go to that 7 neutral of tap water, or pH enhanced water, which I like to be 9.5 or higher.
Right.
But that actually makes us hold oxygen.
Correct.
And when we're in that slightly oxygenated state, our cells are functioning properly.
Absolutely, because again, it's what it's supposed to be. And even if you just drink bottled water, you're better off than not. I mean, and they still say you ought to drink half your body weight in water a day, on average. Think about that. How many people don't come close to that?
It's actually very difficult, especially in this Pittsburgh area, because of the weather and our activity and so forth, to demand that. And then we drink coffee, or we drink sodas or tea, or whatever, and we think we're being hydrated. We're actually dehydrating ourselves with that process. But one of the interesting, I want to mention this, what people have to realize, that we live in a area where we have chlorine and fluoride added to our water.
Right.
Now, fluoride is the second most toxic substance you could put in your body, next to arsenic. And the medical profession supports this fluoride, but when you look, and stronger bones, stronger teeth, and so forth, you go to a dentist's office, you get fluoride treatments, and I'm not saying they don't have some value, but you've got to really study it and be cautious of what you're doing, because this stuff accumulates in the body, and it's a toxin, it's a poison. And they don't even use natural fluoride. It's waste product from aluminum production mostly. What they have to clean the smokestacks, and they haul it away as toxic material. And somehow it gets dumped in our water supply and added to our toothpaste and so forth.
It's got something to do with economics.
I think it does, but you have to be concerned about what you're putting in your body, and we hear 70% fluid. We're more like 90. A newborn baby is at least 90% fluid.
Right.
And we're in a state of dehydration all the time. When I was on staff at a convalescent home, I saw patients that were about to die because they were dehydrated. Once they realized they were dehydrated and hydrated them with IVs, bounced back and lived longer.
Right.
They were in a fetal position. So that's how important this fluid is. And without that fluid, you can't transfer anything.
Right. Well, you need the fluid because, again, electricity travels through water.
So most of these bottled waters, in actuality, are not, they're more acidic than they are even neutral.
They are. The sad part is they're a heck of a lot better than not drinking any.
And they've taken out a lot of the chemicals of chlorine and fluoride and so forth.
Supposedly.
Yeah. Now we're going to take a break here right now. We'll be back in a few minutes with Dr. Gary Fieber talking about support for the energy of our body. And we're going to go into detail on the second half of the show on how we actually could do that.
Perfect.
We'll be back in a minute here at Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. Welcome back to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski, and Tucker and I are here having a conversation with Dr. Gary Fieber, and we're talking about energy, and what we are is energy. We're electrical.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that we need to do to support that electrical system in our body?
It starts honestly with water, as we were talking about. You've got to have water. People are dehydrated in this country. They don't drink enough water. They drink a lot of stuff that has water in it or made with water.
And think they're hydrating themselves.
And think I drink coffee, okay? If I have a vice, it's Starbucks coffee. But caffeine dehydrates you. Whether it's in herbal tea or regular tea or coffee, you can't just drink 8 cups of coffee a day, which I don't, and think you're getting water. You've got to have plain, pure, clean water.
Well, absolutely. Coffee and tea are actually, with that dehydration effect of caffeine, they're actually diuretics. Mm-hmm. So, you can make that association. I drank a cup of coffee and I had to run to the restroom, because that's the way it works in your body. So you think you're drinking this fluid, and you're actually causing fluid to leave on a cellular level, meaning it's coming out of your cells and going into your bladder and going into your intestinal tract.
Right.
So we have to rethink that. And you had mentioned earlier in the show about drinking half of your body weight in ounces
of water per day,
which is really, when I lived in Arizona, that was easy. Over here, it's really difficult. But I like to tell people a liter of good water for every 50 pounds of body weight.
That works, right?
So it's kind of an easier way for them to control that, because you can picture a liter of water. I mean, here's a liter of water.
Right.
And you know, that's not a liter of cola.
Right.
It's a liter of good water. This happens to be high pH water, and I'm not doing an advertisement for them, but I buy this structured water at 9.5 pH with added electrolytes. So what does that do?
Well, you've got alkaline water, which is what you need. The acidic nature of everything that we eat, everything that we drink, is really related to most illnesses. The body wears down, the body wears out. And you don't want acids. You want alkaline intake so that it can balance the function in the body.
So I hear stories from people, Gary, and I read things online. It says alkaline water is a waste of money, it costs more, it doesn't do anything for you. And I'm going to tell you what, I agree with those stories I read, and I agree with what people say. Directly, it does nothing for you. Indirectly, it does a whole lot of things for you. And maybe I'll take a minute and explain that. So our stomach acid is, on average, 2.3, 2.4. It varies from person to person. And as long as we're not taking some anti-acid medication or over-the-counter stuff to stop that process. What happens when we drink alkaline water, which is high alkalinity, high oxygenation, it dilutes our stomach acid. Our stomach wants to go back to that normalization of 2.3, 2.4, because that's what we need to digest our proteins and make amino acids, to break down the vitamins and the minerals and so forth, because we have no stomach acid. We're not breaking those things down. Correct. Therefore we're not absorbing them, and we're starving ourselves. So all you people on all of those acid blockers should listen up. But when we drink this alkaline water, our stomach tries to go back to that normal acidity. When that happens, the small intestines and the pancreas produce sodium bicarbonate to counterreact that acid. Mm-hmm. When they do that, that makes our blood and our cells become alkaline. So indirectly, it works fantastically. Directly, it doesn't do anything. And so it is important for us to drink alkaline water. That's all I drink. I buy this stuff by the cases.
Right.
You know, and I've talked about it for years. We need to make our cells oxygenated. That's what we're doing. Even cancer can't live in an oxygenated environment. So when I hear people that are diabetics, or I hear people that have cancer, or they have fungal problems and so forth, what are we looking at? We're looking at their body being acidic. Because, as you said, most foods make us acidic. Mm. Animal products make us acidic. Things we drink, teas, coffees, they all make us acidic. Milk, sugar, all of these things promote the acidity in our body. So we have a battle to overcome that.
And the sad part about it is we can go for literally years and not really get sick and relate it to anything we're doing nutrition-wise or drinking-wise. We'll end up, however, with a chronic headache problem, chronic muscle aches, chronic digestive or elimination problems, or we end up now with degenerative conditions because of all these oxidative stress problems. And there's over 200 plus illnesses now that they relate to oxidative stress, which has to do with this whole positive negative balance in the cells and in the body. And the trouble is, we're not really educated about it, and enough people don't know about it. And of course, most people have still been raised, and it's better, but you ain't sick till you got symptoms.
But you get symptoms, fatigue,
right,
that you don't think about. Getting colds all the time, having sinus infections. You get those and you think, oh, that's just happening on my daily routine. You know, just living, you're going to get those, being out with people and so forth. No, it's because your body's acidic, and right, its immune system becomes depressed. And then there's what controls all of that. What's the voltage regulator in our body?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting, you might have a different opinion than I do on that, but I want to go back to something you just said about getting sick. That is sick, but we're programmed to think every day that happens because we're fatigued or we have too much stress in our life. So of course you're going to get run down. Of course you're going to get, but I mean, if you put bad gas in your car, trust me, it won't run well. Put bad gas in your lawnmower, it won't run well. Mm-hmm. Put bad anything in you, but we have this amazing ability to survive. However, when we short circuit the electrical system in our body, no matter what, You guys want to screw up your parents' TV, the new smart TVs? Go take a magnet and put it up next to the screen. It'll pull the picture right off. Problem with that is, on a lower level basis, that happens to us. No, not enough water, bad food, our reaction, our immune system short circuits, our cells dehydrate themselves. Each cell in the body actually has this electrical potential in it. This energy, it crosses the cell membrane. I know we don't want to talk about chemistry and science and biology, at least most people don't, but that simple process of staying hydrated, of having the right food, if that energy transfer does not occur across the cell, and by the way, that's how one cell communicates with another one. And if that communication short circuits, you're getting sick or you're going to die.
The communication is so strong that, and this is studies, this is research done, you can take an atom out of a cell, have it in Pittsburgh, take a neighboring sister atom, put it in London, poke the atom, you do something to the atom in Pittsburgh, the atom in London reacts. That's been documented.
So why?
Well, I think we're all connected. We're just energy. The universe is energy, the planet's energy, everything's energy.
Right. It is energy. They've done studies with prayer. Prayer is interesting. Some people pray, some people meditate, some people, but when they, and the thing that blew me away the most is when I read the study on people with stage 4 cancer. They took and separated them into 2 groups. They measure their cancer markers, all the blood indices. This is in this country. They go to England. They go to a church. And they give the people, there's 2 groups of cancer patients in this country, Group A, Group B. They gave the people Group A, the Group A names in England. They prayed for them for 6 weeks. What's prayer? It's concentrated thought. What's thought? It's concentrated energy. It manifests in the universe. In 6 weeks, the Group A markers dramatically decreased. Is that voodoo? No. In fact, to put it on a different level, how many people think about somebody they have not seen or heard from for a year, 2 years, and within 48 hours somebody calls them or texts them?
That happens to me every day.
Of course. So if you want to talk to somebody, think about them. If you don't want to talk to somebody, don't think about them.
Sometimes you don't know if you thought about them and they were acting, or they sent the thought out and then you picked it up.
Exactly right.
But
so,
you know, you talk about that energy. There's a North Pole and a South Pole, a plus and a minus to every one of our cells. We do an MRI, that machine changes that, and that's how they get the picture.
That's
then
literally
it goes back. So all science points to all this energy. We now have to adopt a technique in how to support that energy. The voltage regulator I mentioned earlier, you know, our cars have a voltage regulator.
Right.
You can have a brand new car with a brand new battery, and if that voltage regulator isn't working, that battery dies within minutes of usage, and the car stops.
Right.
That same thing happens in our body because our voltage regulator is our thyroid. And if the thyroid is not working properly or not being supported to work properly, the hormones aren't produced, or they're not becoming biological available. And I don't want to do a thyroid lecture here, but our voltage regulator then is not working, so the cells can't work. When the cells can't work, they can't hold that oxygen. They can't keep that North Pole and South Pole fed, and we end up in this chronic state of disease.
We do, and the sad part about thyroid issues with a lot of things, medicine, again, traditional medical laboratory tests don't really test for all of the aspects of thyroid function. So they no, your thyroid's normal. Well, did you look at?
No, they don't look.
They don't look. So if they don't look, you don't find it.
Even the best of them don't look at most of this stuff.
And because it's that they were trained years ago, and that becomes a habit, and that's because, well, and you know, the insurance companies will pay for this test, and they won't pay for that test, but again, it's amazing how many people have had thyroid problems, find it before it shows up on their few tests by using other more involved tests, and their life changes dramatically.
Well, I've seen it with a number of patients that I've consulted with, and they sought out the right test and the right treatment and so forth. That thyroid is really the controller of everything in your body, and then it goes hand in hand with the intestinal tract. The two communicate it one to another. If the intestinal tract is not right, that thyroid's not working. If that thyroid's not working, that intestinal tract's not working.
Exactly.
So we have to really be in tune with what's going on in our body in order to be well. Even if we fault. You know, over the summer I tend to eat too much ice cream, and that's a lot of sugar. I don't worry about the fat. Fat's good for you.
Right.
It's the sugar that's bad for you. You know, even when you kind of stray away and do something like that, you can correct that if you make changes.
Right.
Like cutting and reducing the amount of ice cream you're eating. But you don't have to live in a bubble.
Right.
But you just have to be cautious and conscious of what you're doing.
Right. And I'm not going to say don't ever eat ice cream. I eat ice cream. If I eat too much ice cream, I don't feel good.
Right.
And unfortunately, in our years as kids, teenagers, young adults, we haven't run ourselves down enough so we can actually put up with most of that stuff, except for we think we're just staying up too late at night, quote, studying or cramming. But it's really an overload. If you're going to McDonald's every day, if you're going to fast food places every day, if you're eating Dairy Queen every day, sorry, but that's what they do. Even the local high quality ice cream shops, I mean, it's still ice cream. It's still sugar, and it's still salt. I mean, most ice cream is made with salt.
Yeah, I don't really buy into that salt thing because we are saline solution.
Oh, we are, true.
So we need salt. We don't need excess salt, but
Right.
we need daily salt intake in order for that electricity to work.
Just want to make sure there's not too bad of salt in
Yeah,
there.
too much.
You're
too
right.
much
No,
salt.
I
And
agree.
if you have a blood pressure problem, you're on blood pressure medication, that's a whole other issue. But how do supplements, we talked about water and hydration, how important that is, and that is, I think, the basis of everything. But nutrition is extremely important, and we know our food supply is kind of on the low nutritional side. So we have to supplement. What are some of the supplements that help increase this energy?
Well, it's interesting you say supplements because, first of all, supplements are quality or not quality. And again, if they're processed at high temperatures, they destroy everything that's in them.
Yes.
So you have to be careful about that. But I mean, even people on blood pressure medication, the fact that they are taking fluid out of their body, the fact that they're probably going to be deficient in CoQ10, they're probably going to be deficient in most of the B vitamins. I mean, unfortunately, diabetics that are on metformin, it destroys the B12 in your body. And you need B12 for everything, including making red blood cells and everything else. All of the drugs out there for the, like Lipitors and things like that. I mean, CoQ10 is so important as an enzyme. All supplements do is really, in a simple way, act as an enzymatic or catalyst reaction to everything our body needs. And if we're not eating it, then where are we going to get it?
Well, and you bring up a good point because, you know, I have talked to many vegans and vegetarians, and they think that's the most wonderful thing and so forth, and I find them to be the sickest group of anybody. And not that we need a lot of animal products. We don't need a lot. We need some, and here's the reason. Protein, you know, you hear protein is protein is protein. Well, no, protein isn't protein. So you're getting your protein source from eating vegetables and fruits and so forth. What happens over here is we have the protein doesn't mean much in that we don't use it directly. We need the amino acids that our body's going to break that protein down into,
Right.
and then reassemble that for what we need. So you and I could eat the same piece of protein. You're going to get something totally different out of it than I am. But what happens is some of these plants are all incomplete proteins. In fact, the only plant that I'm aware of that's a complete protein is the hemp plant. But these amino acids, we have non-essential and essential. Non-essential meaning our body, given enough nutrients, can make what we need. The essential ones we have to consume, and they're not in plants.
Right.
So if you're not eating eggs or drinking milk or eating some type of meat, fish, whatever, you're missing out on these essential, meaning we have to consume them to get them, and they're not in plants. So these vegans and vegetarians don't have the amino acids that their body requires.
Right. And it short circuits the body's ability to be able to function and process everything that we deal with. The hormone production suffers. We end up with vascular problems. I mean, it's sad. I like the concept of what they're trying to do, but if you look at them, they don't really look real healthy.
They don't look,
because their system is breaking down. Protein makes up muscle, blood vessels, ligaments, bone. I can go on forever. And without that ability to do that, meaning produce it from these essential amino acids, that when they say essential, it means you're right, you got to get it from somewhere because we ain't getting it. It's just an ongoing downward spiral.
And then enters the liver, so everything we consume goes right to the liver. the liver produces something called glutathione, but it doesn't produce very much glutathione from plants. It does from eggs, red meat, chicken. So glutathione, which is made of 3 amino acids, actually cleans the liver, keeps the liver healthy. So if you have a high sugar and you develop fatty liver, high sugar consumption, you develop fatty liver, or some medications create that problem as well, you're not able to produce glutathione. Glutathione is essential for our immune system. It's essential to clean the liver out and make the thyroid work. Well, now we're back to that thyroid being the regulator for all the cells and their voltage. If that's not working, you're not working properly, and you can attribute it right back to diet.
Exactly right. The liver, and I always was trained, the liver is the garbage disposal of the body. The liver processes everything that we eat, breathe, anything we take in, the liver will eventually process. Imagine glutathione as you got to take the garbage out of your house. If you don't have it to detoxify it and package it the way the body can eliminate it, you're going to get sick.
Well, here's the other thing. We talk about all these antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C. They're so important, but they only work when they pass through our system 3 times. So they aren't very effective the first time that we consume them and they circulate. They get more effective the second and third time. That second, we call second and third pass, is only present with ample amounts of glutathione.
And it's another reason why you have to take supplements on a regular basis.
Yeah, I never suggest taking glutathione supplements though, because our body isn't able to break those down.
Exactly, the molecules are too big anyway.
And they break them down into the 3 amino acids.
Right.
Except for liposomal glutathione. Then that's absorbed about 95%. So if you're going to take glutathione, take it in liposomal form. I don't even recommend you doing that on a regular basis because that shuts that system down of your body producing it. So you want your body to be in the state of producing by you supplying the right stuff, the right nutrition.
That's it. You give people, it's the building blocks of anything. If you overload something, it's just like when you were talking about stomach problems and acid. A lot of people still take antacids of some version or prescription. The trouble with that is if you take too much of that, the body will actually flip it the other way eventually. We used to call it milk alkali syndrome. And it would totally flip the body the other way. You no longer digest anything, and you start developing all these other problems because you've gone so far over the edge. Yet they pop these things because I'm going to go eat a pizza, I'm going to go do this, or I just ate this. You can't artificially keep dumping something toxic into the body and not have a negative effect.
See, personally, I would be looking at a chiropractor to make an adjustment if I had GERD, because often GERD is a result of misalignment.
It's amazing how many times we've helped people with stuff like that, whether it would be ulcers. Remember, we diagnose conditions, we have to put a name on them. I mean, so when you have somebody that's got chronic digestive problems, the majority of times when I saw people like that, we found things in the mid part of the back, because where does the nerve supply come from? Doesn't mean you don't have a neck problem, doesn't mean you don't have a hip problem. I remember treating a guy he actually came in for mid-back pain, but he had bad ulcers. 6 years of bad stomach ulcers on everything. Well, I've also been studying acupuncture since 1977. I know it doesn't look like I'm that old, but anyway. And we were talking to this guy, and I'm going, and I adjusted his middle back, and his stomach got better, but it didn't fix it. And I'm going, what in the heck is going on? I said, are you sure you've never had an accident, an injury, nothing? No, I can't. He came back 2 days later and he says, oh, you know, the only thing I remember was 2 or 3, or I should say about 2 years prior to the stomach problem starting. I was in the grocery store, kid knocked over an end cap of glass bottles, cut the top of his toe, took 6 stitches. Now that may not mean anything to him, but the stomach meridian, the energy that goes through the stomach organ, starts in the big toe. Literally, we did acupuncture on this guy, 2 treatments, no more stomach problems.
Yeah,
it's weird, but I'm telling you, the stuff is amazing. But again, if you disconnect a circuit, hey, you short circuit something in your house, eventually the breaker trips.
So having the right nutrition, supplementing for the deficiencies with the quality supplements are important. These antioxidants are important. Hydration is important, and again, I'm going to advocate high pH water.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
I've talked to some people that actually have their own machines. I have one as well. And then they would put the water that's produced by the machine that only lasts 2 to 3 days in a stainless steel container and carry that with them. And then I say, well, you just negated everything you did with that water in that
Right.
state, and they're like unaware. So you have to really know the fine print of everything.
Well, that's
that you
why
do.
it's so important to educate people, but they've also got to be able to be willing to learn and implement.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the purpose of Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. We want to educate. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're not here to diagnose or treat, but we want you to be educated, for you to investigate and learn and hopefully implement what you've learned.
That's always what I've said, and I still say it today. Give people the information, give them the truth, let them make their own decision. If you truly give them the information, most people will try to improve that in their life. Or if they don't do it for themselves, they're going to do it for one of their children or a relative. I find that always interesting, but at least they're trying to help somebody.
Yeah, I never try to convince anybody of anything because it's an energy drainer for me.
Literally.
You know, so I just throw it out there, and then hopefully you'll take a challenge, you know.
Right.
So I'm a big advocate of supplementation and eating properly and eating a wide group of products. You have something that you brought in that you introduced me to well over, I'd say, a year ago.
Probably now, yeah.
Yeah. And would you tell us about that? You could pick that up and show us what this does.
ASEA is an interesting product. All ASEA is, and I say all it is water that starts with sodium chloride. However, there's something in the body called...
What's sodium chloride?
Salt.
Salt. All right.
And by the way, that creates electrical energy. There's something in the body called redox signal, reduction oxidation. Go back to oxidative stress, go back to oxygenated tissue. And by the way, the cells are opposite of that. When you look at the negative side of the cell, it's inside, not on the outside. But these redox signaling molecules, they used to think were waste products of the cells. They're produced, and everybody go back to science, by the mitochondria, the energy producing structure in each cell. And I know everybody's excited about that. But what happens is these are the communication vehicles. They literally communicate inside the cell and with every other cell in the body. Now, this stuff was patented a number of years ago, and taking this really replenishes redox signaling molecules because we lose them as we lose mitochondria, as we age. So people up until about 20, they produce a number of these, but we start to lose the amount of mitochondria and therefore the amount of redox signaling. Now, there are people that, this has been around long enough, and there's thousands and thousands of research articles on it. The problem is if you're 50, 60, 70 years of age and you are run down and decrepit, it may take you months to notice a change. It may take you weeks. Some people give up. It's like taking, I took B12 for like 3 weeks and I didn't feel any better.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But the point is, we have the same situation with our skin. Our skin cells, when we're young, turn over every 28 days. Interesting. As we age, they don't turn over every 28 days. They turn over 50, 60, 90, 120. And old cells do what? They wrinkle, the skin sags, we get all these wonderful lines. They were able to take this information or these cells and put it in a topical format, Renew 28. Now, why do they call it Renew 28? Because every 28 days, the body turns over. I had the misfortune of cutting my finger in this first joint in the crease. Not smart. I put the Renew 28 on there 3 times, 5 minutes. This cut was healed in like a couple of hours. Now, I healed pretty quickly, but that was amazing. They've got studies that show now you put this stuff on you, and literally in 28 days or less, you'll see wrinkles disappear. Why? Because you're giving the body something it cannot produce on itself anymore or produce to the same degree. So this is salt water in effect.
It's stabilized salt
But
water.
it's stabilized. The process takes 3 days. It's all certified by the government, everybody else, so it's amazing.
How do people find this, ASEA?
Well, be careful, because ASEA is sold through representatives. They're not, you can buy ASEA supposedly from Amazon. The problem with it is they found that people in China have been producing the bottles, stealing the labels, and they even found tomato juice in there. So basically me or somebody else.
How do people get it from you?
They just can call me. That's not a problem.
I think your number and so forth is up on a graphic. I've been using this stuff. I got away from it when I made my move this summer. but I'm back on it. And the first thing I noticed when I first took it was I had an increase of energy.
That's the first thing people say.
Yeah.
They have more energy.
Yeah, so I think it's worth a try. Like you said, you got to stay on it. We're at the end of the show,
Already.
Dr. Fieber. I thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on and educate our audience and hopefully help them have a better quality of life.
More than happy to.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for watching Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. Remember, you can hear me live every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on AM 1250 The Answer on my radio show, Healthy Pets, Healthy People. In fact, Dr. Gary Fieber will be on this Saturday's show, which is Saturday, September 14th.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Great show. We'll see you
Thank
next
you,
time
folks.
on Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. Bye-bye.